Hello and welcome to the LeagueMed 5 by 5, the show that interviews leaders in medicine, MedTech, and finance to discuss their careers and ideas through 5 questions in 5 minutes. I'm your host, Rich Purcell, the Director of Business Development for LeagueMed, and today 5 by 5 goes global. We're joined by Kerem Mavituncalilar, excuse me, uh, the founder of Watermark International Group and the CEO of Vizcogluyoshi Brothers Watermark Holdings, live from Istanbul, Turkey. Welcome, Kerem.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, it's great to have you on here today. Um, we've had discussions before, and it's really great to have you on the show. So I want to ask you: you have a long career and successful career in investment management internationally. How'd you get into finance?
Um, Scar tissue all the way. I come from an industrialist family, but the graduation year coincided with Thai baht crisis. And at the time, Turkey's banking system was almost unregulated, I would say. So the banks have called in the capital, prior to maturity, and we were squeezed, and that cost the family dearly. And I decided that that's not a kind of risk that I want to, ever face again in my career, and decided to become a banker. Joined Citigroup, and that led me to become an expat in Dubai in the early formation years. This is when the current ruler was then the crown prince with a vision. So I was there early with Citigroup, but then a group of us left and created what eventually became Dubai Holding. We were the investment office with a mandate to diversify the portfolio of Dubai, and that was a remarkable experience.
Well, we've done a pretty good job with Dubai. That's an amazing story that comes out of the Middle East there. You decided to come to the United States and go to Bentley. What made you choose Bentley?
Well, a bit of luck and also knowing myself, I wasn't the best of students, but I wanted to study business. So I found the specialty schools and tried my luck. And Bentley proved to be the right choice. I have great friends. My business partner, David, is also from Bentley. I like the school, I like the experience.
Well,
And
it's
then,
gonna. I know.
yeah.
I do know some people that went to Bentley, and it's got an entrepreneurial venture that people really are relate to as they get into there. They have a great business and academic coalition that they go for.
I would share your view on that. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, good. So you've had this truly global education from Turkey to United States and then to the UK. How have these experiences shaped your career and your worldview?
So I wanted to be the Superman in a way, which means that I would have some kind of an edge over my peers with the geographical arbitration. So being a Turkish in the Middle East, or being a foreign international student in another nation, always give you an edge when you move somewhere else. So later, of course, Charlie Munger, put that very well on the, Poor Charlie's Almanac, of, putting different layers of disciplines on top, stimulates creativity and gives you a broader perspective. So, similarly in mine, I early on knew that I wanted to study abroad, and then, US has a very particular structure of academia versus the British discipline. So I wanted to mix and match different things, just to give a broader perspective, which I think proved successful in my experience.
You know, I can see that having experiences across borders gives people much better understanding of cultural influences for business, and how to do business across borders is such a powerful capability. Seen it in banking, and we see it in pharmaceutical development as well. You know, you started Watermark International Group. That was one of your founding companies here. You've been there since 2018. Tell me about why you founded that, and what is your investment thesis for Watermark International?
Yes. So I returned from Dubai in 2005, and it was at the time that Turkey was on a very high growth trajectory, and almost following Spain like growth. And then being an emerging market with the I guess geopolitical instability to some extent, uh, the opportunities started fading, and the need for several families to consider a hedging strategy to allocate a portion of their assets elsewhere, but do it not through just private banking or other measures, but doing it actively, became a necessity and also an opportunity, of course, because I had the experience working overseas in several developed markets. So that was the motive to initiate. And I initiated, with a business partner of mine, but quickly, we started having friends and family, and then the periphery participating and becoming our co-investors. And the primary mandate is the Buffett, rule: don't lose money, nothing more than that. And I think the initial years was, commercial real estate, US only, income driven, creating a stabilized, predictable cash flow to the extent that we can.
Sure.
And then, of course, like everything else, it evolved, and our need and appetite for growing that capital base on its own right, rather than just growing the AUM, became a necessity, also an opportunity. And we started looking at the healthcare space.
Okay, and now you're with the Vizcogluyoshi brothers and Vizcogliosi's brothers Watermark Holdings. Um, Tell me about how that works and compare this fund structure that most funds are set up as compared to the holding structure that you set up with VV Watermark now.
Sure. So the healthcare space itself is massive, 10% of world GDP, 11 trillion. So you have to, somehow put it into chewable bite sizes. And about 7 trillion of it is in services, which is um, essentially maybe a private equity play, but it is highly regulated, and I'm not sure if the returns are necessarily there. I have previously invested in a number of nursing home facilities when I was with Dubai, did very well, but for where I am today with our capital base, that was not necessarily an attractive part. Then you have the pharma of 2 trillion, and that's a long game. It's a binary game. It costs about $750 million for a drug to get approved. That's a big play. Typically, I guess, out of the boundaries of one's career. You hop on the pharma
Yeah.
train, you hop off
Tell
somewhere.
me about
If you have done,
it.
it's great. So we needed, and we're not domain experts. So we wanted the regulatory moat to serve us well. And we also wanted growth, and we also wanted in the short term, and we wanted to be complementary to our, real estate, bucket of the portfolio. So I wanted a lot of things. I wanted a conservative portfolio that behaves like a venture, has the performance of a venture, but not necessarily adding on more risk while outliving my own life span. So I found myself in this nook of MedTech. But I don't claim to be a domain expert here. Um, Quite the opposite. Our job is to manage risk and find the right partners who are domain experts. And if you're following that route, Viscoliosi Brothers is coming from a very short list of candidates. So we were lucky to have invested with them initially. But I'm an analyst at heart, so my investments, we kept the contact, and I was curious enough that intrigued some interest on their side as well. And ultimately, we decided to create a permanent platform, which we called Viscoliosi Brothers Watermark, the company that I created, VBW for short, as a holding company. And you asked me about how it differs from traditional funds. Um, I guess the objective for VBW is it outlives a fund's mandate. A fund management, which I have been a part of lovingly for several years, is an AUM game. And it is predictable returns within a given time frame, which doesn't necessarily fit into the VC journey. You may claim, of course, there are VC funds out there as well, but that synthetic deadline may not necessarily be the right choice to make as an investor. You may choose to press on gas instead of brakes, uh, just because you have a fund that is coming to its maturity. Cutting that may not be the right choice, not for the entrepreneur who has started up the business, or for your investors also. So we said, no, let's just have an open-minded, evergreen structure, and let's build a medtech holding company, one day to be like the J&Js, Danaher's of this world. So it has its own path. It will, act as a holding company. It will make several investments. Some of them will be permanent investments, and it will follow its path to an IPO. So from those points, it's slightly different than a traditional fund.
No, I understand, and I actually like it quite a bit. LeagueMed here is focused on MedTech for the same exact reasons you said. I've spent a lot of my career in drug development and cancer drug development, and when you have a 10-year outcome study to get a result that says you need to do another one, that's the challenge. But MedTech, we have a better regulatory path. The expenses to get to market are much less. And the fact that you can take the knowledge and success of the Vizcogluyoshi brothers and apply it to this model, I think is a really great thing. Um, is the mission of just about money and creating wealth, or is there different satisfactions that come from helping the sick and the suffering get better?
Starting from the brothers, they always have the best of intention to help others in need. That's there. But to do that sustainably over long term, you need a sustainable business model also, which I think they have perfected their craft over the years, over their 3-decade careers. They have a couple of main themes. They're experts in the neuromuscular skeletal area. They were able to bring in technologies globally onto the US market. So, yes, definitely, I think the will to help others are there, but it is definitely sustained by a successful business model.
Yeah, understanding the markets that you're going to is essential to be successful in this space. You just mentioned globally, they're bringing in technologies from around the globe. Where is the theaters of innovation outside the United States that may be beneficial for us to bring here? And what are those markets internationally that inventions and innovations we can target for overseas commercialization?
Sure. So, in short, I think the US spending per capita is about $15,000 compared to a world average about 1,500. So, unless any innovation finds its path to the US market, it's not reaching its full commercial potential, and potentially even not being able to survive, because, for instance, the European initial funding is available through the state, universities, foundations. It's there, but then you have another 15-20 million dollars to go with the clinical trials and the regulatory quality works, and that is where the capital becomes scarce. So people do call it a death valley. So I think you asked about innovation. I mean, within Europe, and I think my view is more like a blind man touching parts of elephant. This is a massive area, but what we have been exposed to is French are great in the orthopedic space. They have different cities, dedicated to shoulders and hips and other body parts. Germany, Swiss, they are great in prototypes and perfecting that craft. UK is great in GI tract and other biologics, for instance. Italy is very innovative in the brain space. Then you have, Malaysia, Singapore, all the Asian markets. Korea is big, certainly. Um, of course, I just don't want to name the countries,
No,
but
no,
uh,
it's great. The niche markets that each of the countries are specializing in is quite interesting. And, Southeast Asia has exploded in manufacturing over the last
yeah.
couple of
And
decades.
the other thing which was surprising to me was that, and at Vizcogluyoshi Brothers, I mean, they have been phenomenally successful. They have 21 exits, generated over 3 billion for themselves and for their investors. So they are a good address. So they do have a continuous, pipeline of opportunities coming their way. And I was, lucky that I sat down and met, over 300 companies, in the last 18 months or so. And certain themes evolve within medtech space and they come in herds. So you have waves, and we went through this. And I don't know why exactly, but it does happen. You have a dental wave, you have a biologic wave, you have a neuromodulation wave. So, I mean, when you have seen an opportunity, often within the same, quarter or so, you see a cluster of, peripheral, opportunities, each dealing with the same craft. So it's a curiosity to me why they're grouped that way, but we
Well,
certainly
I
enjoy
can
the
tell you
learning.
a little bit because
Yeah,
the first one through hacks the jungle, and then everybody says, there's a path here, and it looks like there's a big
probably,
pot of gold at the end. Let's go with that
probably.
guy. And that's a classic pharma approach to development
Mhm.
and market competition. Um, you mentioned the Valley of Death, and one of the reasons that LeagueMed was established is because companies have a really hard time raising between $5 and $20 million to get through that challenging time of pre-market but post proof of concept to get a company up and going. And LeagueMed is established to uh, try to bridge that gap with our community of investors who are physicians and healthcare executives and researchers who understand the marketplace that they're going to be working in. They'll be customers of these technologies. What do you think about the LeagueMed idea here?
I'm absolutely fond of the LeagueMed idea. Since prior to even its inception, it was I was talking to your colleagues and partners, for about, I think, 2 years now. Um, you have this tap into a very smart, highly connected, highly curious, network of physicians. And at the end of the day, medtech is a physician's game. Everything we do comes down to the decision of the physician, whether they choose that technology. Sometimes they choose, sometimes they don't. And it's faceted, right? It's the price of it, it's the practicality of it, it's the efficacy of it. So there are several layers, but ultimately they are the decision makers. So starting from that and walking back all the way to the originator, to the inventor, is I think a very successful approach. And I think our role is right after that, which means that you have an invention, a promising invention, and it needs certainly, of course, capital. But also it needs a company to be formed around, an organization that will sustain itself formally through the clinical, FDA path or any other regulatory environment, and then getting the reimbursement in place, forming a marketing strategy, commercializing it, and then optimizing the balance sheet, moving along the cap table, making sure that you don't get over diluted or you're not exposed to a certain level of credit without means. So all that, you cannot expect that from the surgeon inventor.
Right.
It takes an effort, it takes a group, it takes a village to raise a child, and I think each company is in a way a child. It needs to be nurtured carefully with a group of professionals.
And that's always a challenge for inventors and thinkers. I work with startups quite a bit, and the challenge is always to get the inventor to understand that what you were just talking about, this large world of business that you have to plug into your idea to make it a reality. It's not if you build it, they will come. If you have to establish a business reason for the physicians to use it on top of the clinical reason for physicians to use your product. So adding that value that you can as an investor from and what is the investment range that typically VB Watermark is looking to invest in these companies?
So in short, it could be as small as $250,000. And our, I think, current largest position is about 13 million. So I know it's a wide range. And the reason why it's a wide range is that some investments are, for us, core strategic investments. We want to have a controlling stake in the company. We don't necessarily want to exit from those companies. So it's almost like a perpetual, position to take. And then some opportunities are early onset, and we're just, kind of tipping our toes into getting to know the management and not necessarily sure what the technology will be, but having a high conviction on its potential clinical and commercial success. So we start engaging because most of the relationship actually develops over time. This is not a one-time investment. People go through tranches, and they need to constantly raise money. And those are kind of inflection points for the investor as well to increase its own stake. So it is, again, has to do with managing the risk. So we like to participate on each round until the exit happens. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
Thanks. And what kind of med tech companies are you targeting right now? Are you in in the musculoskeletal area, the neuro area? Where are you looking primarily for your investments?
Yes. So neuromusculoskeletal space is a domain expertise of Vizcogluyoshi brothers. They are the market makers. They are the domain players in that space. So that gives us kind of like a base camp of opportunities.
Yeah.
So we will always be active in that space. But surrounding that, you have several other areas that we're interested as follow-on investors. For example, oncology is certainly, which you're very experienced of, is an area of interest to us. Vascular space is very active. From successful exits are there. It's a very active investable portion within the healthcare. So we like that space a lot. I personally am very curious to learn more about wound care and pain management, neuromodulation, which Germans do very well. And then, of course, with the AI, you have the whole diagnostic imaging, flavor to tap into. So we are looking at a lot of things. Doesn't mean that we're going to cover a lot of things, but there is not a certain area that we would say, oh no, we're not looking at this, because medtech within itself is concise enough that I don't think one should further try to thin the opportunities out.
I'm glad you brought up AI because I
Mm.
see AI being a big game changer in healthcare. Right now, as you suggested, radiology is where a lot of the FDA approvals have come with AI. Back office and document management is another big area in hospitals where AI is being implemented currently. And FDA has approved almost 1,000 AI enabled devices over the last couple of years. What's your perspective on what AI can do in healthcare?
What Excel could do for an accountant is, I think, what AI would do for a surgeon. So, as an enabler, as an accelerator, as an advisor, I think it's fascinating that AI capability is there. In imaging, for example, it will do wonders. Having the technology as such is certainly going to accelerate things beyond what we can imagine. Uh, but my reservation, I guess, at least currently, is would we, as a patient, would I like an autonomous AI-driven surgeon, doing everything in real time right now? Um, and for that, I guess, still very old school. So I would rather wait.
Yeah, I'll wait
But
too.
for
Robot
everything
surgery
else,
is not for me.
but for everything else, I think, yeah, I mean, of course, drug discovery, imaging, yeah, all those services, insurance, payment systems, all that. That's. I'm
It'll
glad
make
that AI
things a
is here.
lot more, yeah, it'll make things a lot more efficient. And I'm not ready for autonomous robot surgery, but I do know that robotic assisted surgery is very, very good. And
Yes,
or
of
in orthopedics, especially, we see a lot of
course.
advancement with robotics and orthopedic surgery that is really helping people get out of the hospital and have less complications. Um, so this has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank
You've
you.
given us a lot of information here. So
Thank you.
at the last of our 5 by 5 here, we try to do 5 questions in 5 minutes, and we'll see if we can get it done. I'll ask a couple of those questions we've already gone over and see if we can make it succinct for our audience. So, first, what made you found Watermark International Group and get into business with the Vizcogluyoshi brothers as VBW?
To risk manage and enhance shareholder value was the primary motive to create Watermark International Group. And one side is risk management, the other one is the enhancement. And I think any investment manager requires those two tools. So, MedTech, we wanted to partner up with a domain expert. Vizcogluyoshi Brothers was certainly the key player in that area.
And how would you compare and contrast the fund structure versus the holding company structure that you set up here with VBW?
Holding company has its own trajectory to become a public company one day. It's an evergreen structure. It will invest in companies, hold companies indefinitely, while a fund structure has a synthetic deadline. That is understandable and makes sense for institutional investors. So it's also a mean to reach capital sources, but it's not the path we followed for VBW.
And what makes the U.S. an attractive area for healthcare investing?
US provides the opportunity for any medtech surgeon inventor to reach its full potential. It represents 46% of the healthcare spending. It's $15,000 per capita. It's unmatched. My country has $15,000 per capita overall, not just for healthcare. So it is the land of opportunity for medtech innovation.
And what kind of med tech companies are you currently focusing on for your investments?
Um, we are active in the neuromusculoskeletal space. We are very keen to invest in the vascular space. It's a very active market from an investment point of view. We are increasingly curious on the oncological space, but we would follow a leading investor there. Um, Personally, wound care and pain management, I think, are fantastic areas to discover. And neuromodulation um, have came in the 80s, 90s, not necessarily understood well, I guess. So it's an area of curiosity.
That's great. And finally, what do you think about LeagueMed and our approach to alternative investment strategies?
It is a fantastic opportunity to have your platform for the fund managers, inventors, surgeons, to meet an immediate crowd of investors whose skin is in the game with such practical knowledge as practitioners of the industry. So you can cut the story very short in a very in a very succinct way, directly, tapping into the end user.
Thank you so much, Kerem. This has been a great time. I love having our 5x5 discussions, and it's been great to have you as a guest. Thanks a lot, and we
Thank you
hope to
so
talk
much
to
for
you
the
soon.
opportunity.
All
Thank
right.
you.